I'm Dr. Melissa Longo. Welcome to Everyday Rockstar Moms, where every episode I'll interview moms just like you who are rocking it in their homes, raising their children, managing their households, building their careers, working on their relationships, dealing with challenges, finding success, trying to find balance, and themselves along the way. Every episode you'll hear from women just like you of all ages and stages of motherhood, sharing their stories, life experiences, and leaving you with practical tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you rock your life. This is Everyday Rockstar Moms interview with Janet Fairbridge. Hey Janet, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Melissa.
This is another great opportunity for me to be sitting face to face with someone chatting about motherhood, so I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I've known you for quite some time, but why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're at right now with life and your daughter and all that other good stuff you're up to.
Sure. I am a single mom of a really fabulous 16, almost 17-year-old, some days going on 25, a daughter, as I said, who is the light of my life, and she's so much fun, and everything right now is about her and her fabulous energy that she brings to my world and her own world, and all of these new things, you know, these new adventures and all of these new bits of her life that are coming to be, and it's really, really fun to watch that and be part of that. Mm-hmm. Professionally, I am a fundraiser for our local Hospice Georgian Triangle, and I will be celebrating my second anniversary in that position next month. I've come to fundraising somewhat naturally, I guess, with my involvement with many nonprofits and arts organizations over the years. But professionally, this is new for me. My background is television production, mm-hmm. and did that for many years in Toronto and worked for most of the major broadcasters down there. Moved up to Collingwood in 2007, was able to work for some of the local companies here, which was great, and still commute a bit to Toronto and do some of the bigger projects down there. But I had this fundraising opportunity come up a couple of years ago, and it completely appealed to me in a way that I think it still surprises me on a daily basis how much it appeals to me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing professionally now.
It's so interesting. There's so many things I want to talk to you about based on what you just said. But even just a quick snapshot of your career life, right? Mm-hmm. You've done a lot of different things, and I think that it's so admirable to be open and willing to try new things, you know, at any stage of life. Some people get fixated in one career, yeah. And they don't see the ability to move out of it if they're not happy or if life changes. So can you talk a little bit about all those changes for you along the way?
Yeah.
Because you obviously loved television production and
Absolutely.
Succeeded at that and was...
Absolutely. I still miss it. Certain elements of it in particular, the social side of it, the people that I worked with who are an incredibly dynamic and creative group of individuals. So in certain days I miss parts of that. But I have sort of, in my personal life and personal side, I have some sort of creative outlets that sort of help fulfill those gaps as well. But in terms of the change, I watched my dad, who was a school teacher for 35 plus years, did the same job for the most part for that time, and there was nothing wrong with that by any means, because he was such a great role model in terms of the work ethic and the time committed and all of those good things. But for me, and I guess maybe it speaks to my creative side, maybe it's that I'm a little more flighty.
Maybe you just have lots of different interests and skills that you're indulging.
That's it. And I think that's part of it, that the creative side of me needs new challenges on a regular basis. And so working in television certainly gave me that, because it was different every single day, and depending on the show you were working on at the time, one show was very different to another and that sort of thing. But I've also always been open to change. Mm-hmm.
Is that something that was instilled in you as a child, or did life teach you that? Because some people are very resistant to change, and some people, I'm with you. I love new things. I like novelty. I like change, and I can roll with it pretty quickly. But some people, that would just throw their world completely upside down.
Sure. I think a lot of it goes back to the fact that I was diagnosed with a chronic disease very early in life. I have a genetic disorder or disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth, and it is a neuromuscular disease that in my family, it runs through my dad's side of the family. It affects legs and feet for the most part. There are a lot of people in the world who have it who also have their hands and arms affected. Lesser in my family are the arms and hands affected, although somewhat. But it's, without getting into all the scientific boring stuff about it, it's a chronic disease, and it's something that I live with every day, and that I watched my father live with, I watched my grandmother live with, all of her sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. It's affected a number of people in my family, and part of that chronic condition is change. It is a progressive disease for the most part. Some people are affected earlier than others. It's evident in some people earlier than others. As I said, I was diagnosed when I was 4, but that's mostly because the doctors sort of knew what they were watching for at that point because of the history in my family. And they had a name for it then. The testing for it now is, as you can imagine, in the 40 plus years since I was diagnosed, the testing for it now is leaps and bounds above where it was. So there is actual, DNA testing now that can be done. Back then, it was, you were hooked up to, I'm going to get all the terminology wrong, but you were hooked up to electrodes, and they were doing nerve conduction tests in your body, and watching you walk, and watching the way your foot hit the ground when you took a step, and how you lifted your foot up off the ground as you took that step, and all of those sort of physical aspects. Whereas now it's, a fairly simple, fairly routine blood test. But anyway, it's about change, and it's about progression, and you know that, you might feel good one day and the next day you may not, and you adapt. And so I think that's probably a lot of...
Change your character, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, at 4, your character's still developing, but...
Yeah, absolutely. But you just sort of learn to roll with the punches. You learn to... maybe have a day where you are uncomfortable, or you have pain, or, you're being singled out as the one who can't run the fastest, or can't jump the highest, or you may not get picked for the soccer team right away, or, all of those kinds of things, which as a child, that can be devastating. But you learn to deal with some of those realities pretty early on. And it certainly shapes you as an adult, for sure.
How would you say that has affected you and the kind of woman you are, and affected your mothering of your daughter? Because that just sounds so profound. In who you are as a person. Sure. And so many people like you've dealt with health challenges and have been able to see the light in it, or be able to create their life in a really wonderful life, regardless of it. So, your main limitation with it now is mechanical? Yeah. That's
a good way to put it. It is. It's mechanical. It's... the effects of the disease have caused other issues in my body, and so I do have chronic pain as a result, which I didn't have chronic pain as a kid, but you had sort of moments of pain. Now it's chronic, so it's every day. How does that affect my mothering or my outlook on life? I don't know. I guess in many ways it's perhaps a little bit of denial. It doesn't affect,
no, it doesn't stop you from doing anything, really.
Well, I still got to live my life. I still have to have a job and pay the bills and raise my kid and put food on the table and be present. So you have your down days. Yeah. But it's just part of my reality, and so I don't let it be my entire reality. There's no reason.
From as long as I've known you, it's never stopped you from doing anything you wanted to do.
No.
Yeah.
No. And I watched my dad, and I watched my grandmother, and I watched, my family deal with it. It never occurred to me to see limitations in them. They never put limitations on themselves. So why would it limit me? It's, and maybe again, that goes back to my creative side. It's, my own imagination is going to let me do whatever it is I want to do.
And I mean, the truth of it is, you said, you're going to have painful days and non-painful days. That's life for most people anyway, right? Especially life as a mom. I mean, you've got days where your kids are all behaving amazing and you're feeling like you're doing everything right, and you have those days where you're like, what's going on today? Did I fail them on this level? Or you're just feeling overwhelmed or tired? So, I mean, that's just life perspective.
Absolutely. And that, I guess, I mean, that's the big part of it for me. It's like, it's no different than anybody else. I'm no different than anybody else. So I'm not going to treat myself differently, and I'm certainly not going to treat my life differently, and I'm not going to treat those around me any differently, because this is me. This is who I am, and you get up and you do your thing every day.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like that's been a challenge for you in parenting. What about life in general? Have there been moments like Lindsay's 16 now, in those 16 years that stand out for you as particularly challenging?
Sure. Having now been married twice and divorced twice, not that I want to say I'm getting good at it, but
you're rolling with it.
Yeah, I'm rolling with it, and it's, did I see myself as someone who was going to be married twice and divorced twice? No, never. But again, it's the reality of the situation. It's unfortunate the way it's unfolded. Lindsay's dad and I split up when she was really, really young. So it kind of, I guess, it forced me in many ways to go back to being independent and self-sufficient and perhaps a little bit fearless. Because as a single mom of a toddler, you don't have any choice. So you really have to step up and do what needs to be done, right? I was lucky her dad was still very much a part of her life at that time and still is today. But at the end of the day, it's you and this wee toddler who doesn't sleep through the night, and you've got a full-time job, and you have to put the meals on the table, and you want to have the best for your kid, and so you do the best you can with the given situation.
So if you were to look back at all the stages that Lindsay's gone through, those years would sound like they were the toughest because of the sheer demand of toddler and infant life, right? I mean, they physically need you for so many things.
Yeah. I think looking back at it retrospectively, yeah, absolutely. And some days you kind of giggle and go, wow, I think I was a walking zombie, because I don't really remember the specifics of those early years. But you do your best.
Yeah.
And you get through it. And I had amazing friends around me who helped, and an incredible family who were there for me all the way through. So I was really lucky that way. I had lots of support through that tough period and tough time. And Lynn's turned out to be a great kid.
See, I was going to say, so I know she's a teenager, right? Yeah. And I mean, my son is on the verge of that. He's 14 now, but you hear so much about those teenage years being horrible, especially for girls.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like that's your world really at all.
No, I'm really lucky. She's a really good kid. She works really hard at school. She's just a nice kid, and yeah, that's me as a mom bragging, but it's true too. Like I see her, I see her interact with her friends, and I see her interact with other adults, and the way she speaks about her teachers and her coaches, and I'm really proud to say that she deals with people with a level of respect that just makes me proud, and she's doing exceptionally well with school. She's done really well with her athletics this year. I give a lot of credit to her 8th grade teacher, Darren Lang, who was the first time she had a male teacher in all of her elementary school years. And I can't really explain it or describe it, but she really connected with Mr. Lang and he with her. Like he got her sense of humor. He got the way she thinks. He got the way she studied and how she, the output she was capable of, and he somehow found a way to kind of light her up with that. And he was the first one to put a discus in her hand, and all of these really kind of off the wall things. And from that point on, she really kind of came into her own. It was a big part of, I guess, the maturity level as well. But I give full credit to this wonderful teacher who really took the time to get to know her, and he really lit her up, and I think has put her in a really good place. That through high school, she wrote her first grade 11 exam this morning, which is completely blowing my mind. She's done really, really well. And she's really, she's going for it.
She's had a great circle, just similar to you. You've had a great circle of support around you with family and friends. She's had some really influential people as well.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk, she's 16. She's interested in boys or anything yet. I don't know. But how do you feel as a woman trying to shape, having been through relationships, having been through marriages, marriages aren't easy, right? And like you said, you don't know what life's going to throw at you.
Right.
How do you feel, or what's her experience been going through those with you? And how do you, as a woman, you start teaching your teenage daughter about love and relationships and what's healthy and what's not? Has it been a part of your learning to teach her that too?
Yes, most definitely. And it's made me really think long and hard about my own thoughts on those things and how I've dealt with things over the years and how I want to deal with things going forward, and the conversations that she and I are now having. It's really made me stop and think. She's been, she was really hurt through the breakup of my second marriage, and you kind of selfishly get lost in that when you're going through it.
You're not only going through it yourself, but you're also going through it through your child's eyes.
Yeah. But I guess I say selfishly in that you're maybe not as conscious as you should be about what that reflection is in their eyes and what they're feeling and how they're feeling it. And it's only sort of after the fact that I kind of sat back and went, oh, wow, right. We need to talk about this. And so we do a lot. And what I'm trying to express to her, and I guess perhaps even to express to myself, is, don't let yourself get lost in it. And I think, I always joked about how early in my professional career, somebody told me early on that, you have to look out for number one because nobody else is going to. And I think that applies to so many things. And certainly in relationships, you do have to look after yourself. You do have to be proactive in that self-care and self-management, and be happy in who you are so that you can be happy with someone else. And you have to be conscious of
like what we bring into the relationship from our perspective.
Yeah, but also in the sense that you want to be able to be okay being on your own. You want to be able to enjoy your own company. Because if you can't enjoy your own company, how can you expect anybody else to enjoy your company? And so there's a lot of self-love there that I think if you're not careful, that gets lost. And so I'm really trying to help her see that side of being in a relationship. Yes, there's the give and take of the actual relationship, the work that is required to put into a relationship to be part of that working whole. But so much of that, I think, is making sure you're looking after yourself and that yourself doesn't get lost in it.
I remember feeling that way between when I was single, between my marriage, and feeling like, okay, you know what, I just may be on my own, and that's going to be okay, and really even having some great people in my life say the same thing to me, say just be single for a while, and just do your own thing. And that's where I found such joy in my work and my kids, and it kind of got to the point like I didn't even care if I met anyone else ever again. And then when I was least expecting it, the guy was there for me. But I 100% wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
And so many times men and women get lost
Yes.
in their combined identity in a relationship, and they forget about their individual needs.
I completely agree. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to share with Lindsay is that, you know what, you still have to look after yourself. Yes, you can be part of a working whole in the bigger picture, but don't lose sight of yourself.
No.
You know, because that's what attracted that other person to you in the first place. So don't let that get lost in it.
Speaking of self-care, you know, it's very difficult for some moms and for, you know, for both of us at times, I'm sure, to focus on ourselves and take care of ourselves physically. Do you have strategies that are really important for you in your life? Like, you know, lifestyle habits, like how you eat, sleep, you know, playtime, meditation, prayer, anything like that that's really key for you, keeping you performing at your peak?
I'm a sleeper. If I don't get my 8 hours, I'm a grouchy bear. And my teenager will be the first one to remind me of that. Mom, you're tired, which is totally fair, because she's the same way. So we have that in each other. I'm as much as I'm trying to focus on me and enjoying my own company and doing my own thing. I am a social creature, and so a big part of it for me is social time with friends, social time with the family, you know, getting out and being with people and laughing. Laughter is such a big thing for me. Do I eat right? I certainly try to. You know, we have those days. You know, exercise, absolutely, I try to. Again, am I religious about it and am I really good at it? No, but again, I'm okay with that, and I do what I can when I can. You know, I putter in my garden, and I putter around my house, and you know, I try to stay active, mostly because it, you know, I just feel better when I am, and my body with my disease feels better if I'm active. You know, and I sit for the most part all day in my job, so I need to get up and move. But yeah, it's more about the social side of things for me. That's where I find my most joy.
It's a good thing. Laughter's a good thing.
Yeah.
And connecting with other women, with other men, you feel less alone. I mean, social stimulation is important for health in general, and sometimes it's overlooked when people's lives get busy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes at the end of the day, you got nothing else to give, especially if you're in a role like you are in the public eye. Working with people a lot, but it sounds like it fills you.
It really does. I've often said that, you know, as much as I loved my work in television, I leave my job every day now with a very full heart, and I've never really had that before, and it's an amazing feeling to know that at the end of the day, you've helped somebody, and I've never had that in my professional life, and it's absolutely truly the best feeling ever.
You guys do really important work at the hospice, really important work, and not just in the care that you're providing for the people that are there and their families, but the outreach and educational you know, initiatives to help people learn how to understand their emotions and process grief and move through it. I mean, it's incredibly healing work for our community.
We're really privileged to be able to do it. We have such an incredible team, and they feel as I do, where you know, it really is a privilege to be able to help. And so we want to make sure we're doing it to the very best of our capability, because it is important, and it's needed, and it's we're lucky to be able to do it in this community because this community supports it. The community has really stepped up over the years to grow the organization to where it is now. I mean, it was a volunteer-run organization for so long, and it still is. I mean, it still really is the volunteers that drive the place. You know, those of us that are staff, we're there to help them to deliver the message and to deliver the support services. So it's a pretty special place.
Have you ever had times in your life where you maybe wanted to make a career change or make some other lifestyle choice or parenting choice for your daughter and been faced with any criticism?
Oh yeah.
And
Sure.
so what gets you back out of those situations comfortably?
It's twofold for me. It's tuning into my gut to make sure that if I'm okay with my choices and with what I've done, then I'm going to stick with that. And at the same time, it's being brave. I was at a fundraising conference recently, and I saw these people wandering around, and they had this little black and white button on that said "Be brave." And I said to my colleague Tanya, I said, "I need one of those. I need one of those buttons." And she just thought I was completely nuts. Anyway, I managed to track one down, and for me, it kind of encapsulated so much of what I believe in my life. That really, if you're making a decision, no matter what that decision is about, if you do it and be brave about it, you believe in it, you've given it the thought and the energy and the time that it deserves, and no matter what the criticism may be around you, be brave and go for it. If that's who you are and what you need to do at that moment, own it. Absolutely. Step up, take responsibility for it, and do it. If it goes great, all the better. If it falls apart, you still have to own it.
Right.
You still got to take responsibility, and you got to be brave and say, you know what? Okay, maybe this didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but you were brave in your choice, and you're brave in how you deal with it. You hold your head high and you carry on.
And you move forward.
Yeah.
Those are two really, really great tips. It sounds to me like you've had a lot of great influencers in your life, starting from your family, right? And the way you were raised, and you've spoken so highly of them. Who would you say were some of your biggest influences on the kind of mother you are?
Oh, my own mother.
Yeah.
For sure. She'd be the last one to admit it, but she's tough as nails. She really is. And yet at the same time, she's so very soft, which I absolutely adore about her. And my grandmothers, who, my paternal grandmother who had CMT and had later in life some very serious autoimmune issues. She was a tough old bird too, and just was dry, like funny British dry humor, and she just always made me laugh. But again, tough as nails. And then my maternal grandmother, who I was probably closest to, she had the best stories. She always talked about, when she and my grandfather were first married, and they moved away from their hometown to, she was living on her own in the city when he was stationed out west during the war, and she was this, married, but very young married woman, sharing a little wee flat off the Danforth with another woman whose husband was also stationed elsewhere, and working at the bank, one of the big banks downtown, and it just showed me that, whatever life throws at you, you can do it.
Right.
And you just put your mind to it, and you do it.
Well, no doubt that's carried you far.
Yeah.
You can hear that in many of your comments today. We're almost running out of time here. The last couple questions for you would be, your whole life journey, parenthood, motherhood, has it been what you thought it would be?
No. Not even close.
No? How so?
I probably was that stereotypical little girl who had the picture in her head with the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and the husband and the dog and the cat and the whatever. Yeah. My life has been anything but. And that's okay. That's okay. It's been a heck of an adventure, and I'm not ready to call it anytime soon. So I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Celebrating the unexpected and finding joy in all of it.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you would go back and say to your younger self, like as a mom? Anything that you wish you had done differently?
Yeah. I would have been braver earlier on. For sure. Yeah. I would have said, you know what, be brave.
Yeah.
trust your
Because
gut.
a lot of moms who are listening to this have children at all stages.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even have children yet. So
Sure.
there's words of wisdom in everything that you're saying for all of us. But if you were to turn back the clock, is there anything as a mom you would do differently?
No.
It'd be hard to answer that, really, because you've got such a great, mature daughter right now.
Yeah. In retrospect, I mean, she's turned out pretty great. Maybe despite me and my efforts some days.
Yeah.
And again, I'm okay with that too. It's you do the best you can in the situation.
There's a lot of self-acceptance in what I'm hearing, in that you're not too. I mean, I'm sure we're all hard on ourselves some days, but
sure.
It sounds like you're really okay with accepting, all of you, right?
Yeah.
Like in the days where we feel like we're amazing moms and the days that we're not. And
well, and I so often say to Lindsay, you know what? All I ask is that you do your best.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I can ask of myself as well. Some days I feel like I'm winning, and some days not so much.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of being human, I think, is where we do tend to be our own worst critics, and I'm certainly most guilty of that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you got to get up every day and do your thing, and you do it to the best of your ability, and you do it with all your heart. I don't think anybody can ask anything different.
Well said, and what a great way to end our show today. Thanks so much for your time and being here, and wishing you continued bravery and excitement.
Thanks so much.
There you have it, a great story today from a mom who rocks. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. When you do that, I'll be sending you a copy of my top 10 tips for moms. These are some of my personal practical strategies I believe that as women we can all benefit from and help us be emotionally and physically as healthy as we can be. When you're also there on iTunes, I would also love it if you left a review. It's really important to leave some reviews because that helps other people find the podcast, and it helps inspire them to listen and potentially gain some insight from the podcast. Tell other moms that you know would benefit from this show, or most certainly nominate them and let me know who you think I should be interviewing. I'd love for you to connect with us on Facebook as well. Head on over to Everyday Rockstar Mom and join our community there. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.